Hey there guys, what is up? Welcome back to my channel. If you're new, make sure you hit the subscribe button. So today I have a really exciting video to share with you guys. I'm going to be doing a tutorial review swatches of the brand new Sephora Pro Warm Neutrals palette. I was so excited when this launched and I saw it on Instagram. I was very happy to see Sephora collection kind of branching out in their eyeshadows. I feel like a lot of times just Sephora collection in general just doesn't have like that good of a rep. Like a lot of people just kind of hate on it. They don't think it's like as great of quality as a lot of other brands that are sold in Sephora since it is like their house brand. But I personally have been a fan of a lot of their products for quite some time now. So when I saw that they were launching this whole Pro palette line, I was thrilled. I knew that I definitely wanted to get my hands on this palette and really try it out for you guys and see what the hype was about, see if it was actually really good. This was designed by the entire Sephora Pro artist team. So this is their team of artists that, you know, work on fashion shows and they're often in their YouTube videos and really are the face of their makeup brand. But in the line you have the warm tone one, you have a cool tone one, and you have an editorial one, which is more bright colors. And which is really cool about that one is that a lot of the names in the editorial one are named after the Sephora Pro artist. So I think that's really awesome that they're honoring their pro artist team. Way to go, Sephora, for that. But I really want to do like a really nice full in-depth review for you guys. I also want to do some swatches and I wanted to do a tutorial for you guys so you guys could see how they look on the eye as well. But if you guys plan on buying this palette when it comes out, let me know in the comments down below. Also, don't forget to give this video a huge thumbs up and subscribe for future videos. Also hit that notification bell so you are notified when I upload videos. I do upload 2 days a week on Mondays and Thursdays, sometimes Tuesdays and Fridays, but we're getting better about it. But make sure you have that notification bell hit so you are notified when I do upload. And if you're excited to see my thoughts, review, and a tutorial on the new Sephora Pro Warm palette, then let's go ahead and dive right on in. So I initially saw this palette the other day in my Sephora store and I was dying over it because I was really happy that Sephora decided to branch out with their eyeshadows. I really wanted to love a lot of their products and I feel like a lot of their single shadows or their other mini palettes they came out before have been kind of a miss by a lot of people. Sometimes they work out, sometimes a lot of people just don't like it and that the formula is not that amazing. But basically what made me really excited about this, like I said, was the fact that they brought in their Sephora Pro team to help make and design these palettes. And if you're unfamiliar with what a Sephora Pro artist is, it's basically 15 of the top hand-picked artists within Sephora. They're picked based on their creativity, their artistry, and their overall knowledge and education on products. And what it says on the back of the box, it says, in partnership with the Sephora Pro team, Sephora has developed these exclusive pro pigment palettes featuring 28 high pigment, high performance shades in chrome, matte, shimmer, and satin finishes. Like a makeup artist's kit, these palettes incorporate a range of expertly selected finishes and shades to achieve any look imaginable. Available in cool, warmer editorial looks for an easy navigation, each palette comes with a simple application techniques written by the Sephora Pro team that are unique but never intimidating. I love that they've made this palette so approachable, which is what I think a lot of palettes need nowadays. When you have that many shades packed into one palette, it can get kind of intimidating because you're like, I don't know what to do. There's so many of the same shades and some people don't understand that, you know, there could be like 5 browns, but each one of them is going to have a different undertone. They're going to look differently on the eye, especially when they're applied. When they could swatch the same, but if they're applied, they could look completely different. And I love that the Sephora Pro team kind of broke that down within a little kit that they provide within the box. So basically when you open the box, you get this little sheet front and back filled with different looks explaining how to use these shades, why they're different, and how to use them and how to even apply them and what brushes to use with them. It's what I absolutely love. So basically you have your own little walkthrough tutorial guide right here. Like it even says stuff like to pat, to apply with light pressure, light strokes, and a circular motion. Like they went that detailed into how to use these shadows, which I love. With Sephora, they're always about education. They're always wanting their clients to know how to use their products when they get home. So I definitely love that the Sephora Pro team added that little guide in here because it definitely is gonna make a beginner feel a lot more comfortable going in when they get this palette. So the Sephora Pro palettes retail for $68 in the US and $88 in Canada. This is limited edition and it only is sold in North America. That being said, according to the Sephora Pro Instagram, this palette is labeled as cruelty-free since it's not being sold in China, although the rest of the Sephora collection line is sold in China, so therefore it's not completely cruelty-free for those of you that are curious and are cruelty-free buyers only. So diving into the palette itself, you do get this sheet that has all these shades written on it. That's my only kind of like really big complaint with it. I know like the Natasha Denona palette does that as well, but I hate it because I had to keep this thing if I wanted the shades for when I'm doing tutorials for you guys or if I'm using this because, I mean, it just makes a mess. It's just, annoying. I wish they had a rent on there. But at the same time, you are protecting your mirror, I guess, so you know, you can't win everything. The fact that that's one of my problems shows how amazing I think this palette is, because that's not a huge problem at all. But what I love about this palette is that you get 28 shades and there's an array of different undertones. There's a lot more orangey undertones, more yellow greenish undertones. There's even one right here. I want to say it's like a purpley tone, but it has a slight warm red undertone to it, which I love. I think is so different and so unique. And honestly, when you look at it, it does look a lot like the Natasha Denona Sunset palette. So a lot of people make correlations, you know, to the Natasha Denona palette. It's also like the ColourPop palette as well. But I personally like this one more because you get more shades and it's more expensive than the ColourPop one, but it's less expensive than the Natasha Denona one. And you get more shades in it. The Natasha Denona one has, I think, like half the shades that this one does, and you're getting way more for only $68, which does sound like a lot of money, especially for a Sephora collection, but you break that down, it's like $250-ish with like added tax per shade. That's not bad at all. But one thing that I especially just love about this palette, which is so like tiny and insignificant, but if you do freelance, like you understand, the fact that it has a white and a black shade in it, it's so vital and important if you do freelance, which is what I love about it. You can really tell that they really thought out about this palette and they really considered makeup artists and freelancers when it came to this palette for sure, because there's so many times that you need a white and a black shade to do highlighting, to do liner. It comes in handy so often, and I'm so happy they did this because there's so many palettes out there that are like this palette that I wish had that shade in there. So I'm so happy that they thought of that. Now, I'm gonna be honest, when it comes to this palette, there are very few cons that I have about it. It's a lot of pros because I really do think that this palette is worth it. I know it's a very hefty price tag. It's $68, and for a Sephora collection, that is up there. But when I think of this palette, I'm not comparing it to other drugstore or very much lower end brands, if you get what I'm saying. I'm comparing it to other high-end brands in the quality and the consistency and the quantity of shadows that are in this palette. It's an amazing deal. I would even go on record saying that I think this palette and the mattes in it are as pigmented and as buttery as the Anastasia palettes. That's how simple it is. That's how I'm looking at it. I'm comparing it to other high-end palettes. I'm not really comparing it to a Morphe palette or any other drugstore lower-end palettes, because if you are comparing it to Morphe, it's not really fair, because yeah, Morphe, you get 30 what shades in it, and then it's like $30. So when you see it, it's like, oh yeah, it's a better deal. You get more colors or whatever, but I mean, really, like, I look at the quality over the price tag, because when it comes to that, Morphe doesn't even come close to touching this. Because I would personally say that the shadows in this palette are not as firmly pressed and they're not as dry as Morphe palettes are, because those shades, those palettes by Morphe, they're very firmly pressed, they are very dry, they don't have a lot of kickback like this one does, but they're dry and you have to really work to build up the color, whereas this palette, I literally can go in so gently with my brush and it just is so easy to blend out. I don't have to put a lot of pressure down. I don't have to sit there and scrape to get color on my brush. It's so simple. But I mean, if you're comparing it to a lower end palette, you're gonna have to use your finger to get any color payoff from those metallic shades, whereas this one, and you guys will see in the swatches, I literally don't even need to use a finger or Fix Plus, because a dry synthetic brush is just as equivalent to Fix Plus and a finger swatch. Like, you get that much color payoff. This is great quality and you're literally getting it for a good price that deserves to be priced this high. I think it definitely deserves a $68 price tag. You guys will be able to tell in the tutorial and the swatches that this is definitely, it's worth every single hype. It's worth every single penny. I'm telling you guys, please do not sleep on these palettes because they are that phenomenal. Now, I did say that I had way more pros than cons when it came to this palette, but I am going to talk about a couple of the cons real quick because, you know, you gotta give some ugly with the good. As far as the shades go, and I did say that when you touch your brush into this, you do get kickback. With the matte shades, you are going to get kickback. Just barely tapping your brush in it. You're going to get some loose pigment popping up. You're going to get some kickback with it, and you're going to get a brush fully loaded with powder. I will say your best bet is to go and tap off that excess and then go in and blend on your eye. But I honestly would rather have kickback than having a dry shade that I'm going to sit there and scrape my brush in just to get color payoff from it. And that's just simply it. Even when you do have kickback like that, some shades in most palettes, you know, you would get fallout on your eyes, but I had hardly any fallout. The only fallout I had was with the red shade I have in my eyes, and it wasn't as intense as like the Huda Beauty palette is, for example. There's also only one shade in this palette that I really have beef with, and it's this peach shade right here. I don't know what it is. I feel like there is like a layer on top of it that's really hard to scrape off, but you don't get as big of a color payoff from the other shimmer shades. It's very loose. It's not intense as its neighbor, the red shade that's right next to it. So I'm not positively sure why it's like that. It's more of a chunky glitter too, I noticed. So I don't know what's up with that one. I'm definitely curious to see how it would look with Fix Plus if it does intensify it more, but I kind of also want to scrape out just a little bit to see if there is a layer on top of it that's really blocking it from adding more color. So I don't know about that one. That's the only shade I personally had a problem with. But honestly, those are the only cons that I have with this palette. Those two little things. I will say when I initially saw the black shade, I was nervous because I was like, oh god, is it going to be like kind of like a crappy black and it's not really that pigmented? But this one, I actually swatched it next to my Kat Von D Shade and Light palette to see how intense the black is, because the black in that palette is so beautiful. Like, let me do it real quick for you. Hold on. So the black shade in the Kat Von D Shade and Light eye palette, Shax, is regarded as like one of the most pigmented black eyeshadows out there. But if I do a finger swatch right next to the Sephora one, it's almost identically in pigment. It's so intense and so concentrated. I was blown away by that in general. I love the mirror that you get in it. I think that's so smart of them to do that, because you can take this palette when you're traveling. It's really a palette that you have all in one together, and if you have a warm tone hair color like me, you get your brow shades in here as well. The shade Auburn right here, which is so appropriately named, is a perfect brow shade for me, so I can easily fill in my brows with this. And then the shade Sand right here is a beautiful highlighter shade. I actually almost used this today, and I just thought it was a nice, very gold tone, yellowish gold, very champagne pop highlight shade. Like, can you see that? I don't know why I'm holding my hand like this, but can you see that color? It's so gorgeous. Honestly, guys, though, I definitely think this palette is worth it. I would not hype it up this much if I didn't truly believe in this particular palette. Now, that being said, I have not tried the cool tone palette. I have not tried the editorial palette. I've only tried the warm tone palette. And I know that I made a comment in my anti-haul about Morphe palettes, how like you don't need 35 shades, but that's looking at quantity over quality. I don't need 35 meh shadows, but 28 amazing shadows, I'll gladly take any day, no questions asked. So I think honestly, whether you're starting out in makeup or you're a freelance makeup artist wanting to expand your kit, or you're just starting to do freelance, or you just love warm shadows in general, I would highly recommend this palette. And to show that I love it so much, I would definitely give it 5 out of 5 stars. I think, is this the only product I've ever given 5 out of 5 stars on? I'm not positive, but I think it is, because it deserves it in every single way possible. It's that amazing of a palette. But if you guys still aren't convinced of how great of a palette this is, I am going to do a tutorial for you guys showing you how a lot of these shades work on the eye. I did want to use a couple of my favorite shades, like the nice little red brick shade, but I also wanted to use some fun colors like the yellow shade that a lot of people probably want to see how you incorporate it into a look. Personally, for me, never thought I could wear yellow eyeshadow, but today changed my mind. And then I am also going to do some brush and finger swatches following that for you guys, so you can see how each of the shades look on the skin and how they blend out and work like a dream, because trust me, they are. So if you guys are excited to see how this palette works on the eyes and how they blend out, then let's go ahead and dive right on into the tutorial. Okay, so for the tutorial part, as you can already tell, I've already done one of my eyes. I just like doing that just so I have a plan and I know what I'm going to be doing, so I'm not going in blind. I really wanted to create like a nice sunset kind of look. I really wanted to use a lot of my favorite colors in the palette. So I've already gone ahead and primed this eye with my MAC Painterly Paint Pot, and I did set it with my RCMA No Color Powder. So we're just going to go ahead and dive right on in. So first off, on a fluffy crease brush, this is just my NYX crease brush. I'm going to take the shade Camel, and we're just going to blend this all throughout the crease as a nice transition shade. You guys know I love this shade so much because it reminds me so much of Golden Ochre from the Anastasia Modern Renaissance palette. I love that shade. It's one of my favorite transition shades ever. I think it's gorgeous and it works on so many different skin tones as well. And I definitely will say that these shades, I think they blend really easily. You just kind of have to take your time with it. Honestly, I don't mind. I always take my time when I'm blending just because I always want to make sure that everything looks great and like very precise. And then really quickly before moving on, I'm going to take my e.l.f. flat shader brush and I'm going to go with the shade Canvas. I'm just going to highlight the brow bone and then just blend the two together with my clean NYX brush. Okay, so we have our nice transition going on. I'm going to deepen up just a little bit with the shade Saddle on the same NYX brush. I'm really just focusing this right here below it. I'm not putting that much. I'm just doing just a little bit just to darken up just a tad. Okay, so now I'm gonna take my Real Techniques base shadow brush. I'm gonna go with the shade Clay. And I'm just gonna take this straight into the crease. And I will say, make sure you tap off any excess because these shades do have a lot of pigment and they do kick back a lot of product as well. So make sure you tap off any excess shadow that you're kicking up. Just gonna blend it out really quickly with my Real Techniques. Do a fiber blending brush. We're just slowly deepening it up because you don't want to go in automatically with such a dark brown shade. You really want to naturally build it up or else it's going to look very patchy. It's not going to blend as easily. But I'm not really taking it above the camel shade. I don't really want to get rid of that. I still want to keep that. I still want that nice diffusion going on. Okay, so now with the same Real Techniques brush, I'm going to go in with this shade Ochre, which is like the most beautiful yellow shade ever. It's insanely pigmented. I definitely probably have to give credit to like Natasha Denona for probably starting this trend. And so on the same Real Technique brush, tapping off any excess because this one does kick back a lot, I'm going to mainly take it shockingly on the inner part of the eye and blending it into the crease. Rarely do I ever like put like another color right here. That's not my transition shade, but I really liked it. I liked the pop it gave to the look and it really made that whole sunset idea come to life. So it's not gonna be too pigmented, it's not gonna be too bright because that's not the main focus we're thinking of, but I did want to incorporate it some way. It gives a nice little dimension to the eye, I think, definitely. So now on my MAC 217, I'm gonna take the shade Terracotta, which is the most beautiful like burnt orange. Like look at how pigmented that is just from touching the shade once. It's so insanely pigmented, but I will say definitely tap off that excess. And then I'm gonna blend this on the outer part of the crease and on the outer corner. We're just deepening up that crease a little bit more and really trying to work the orange in so the red that we go in with later is gonna fade in nicely with it. We also want a little bit of the orange in the crease as well so you get that nice, well-rounded sunset look. Now before I darken up the outer part of my eye, I am gonna go ahead and throw on that red shade. I'm gonna take a synthetic flat shader brush. I'm gonna take the shade Brick, and honestly, you don't even need Fix Plus for this shade. I'm dead serious. It picks up so beautifully and it lays down very evenly. It's not patchy at all. You really don't need any Fix Plus. And I did even do some swatches with Fix Plus and it doesn't really intensify it anymore because it's already so pigmented when you apply it with a brush. And I just pack it on the eye. I'm not swiping it. I'm just packing it on. You don't really want to wipe it because then you'll get some fallout. But if you pack it on, you really don't get hardly any fallout. And I'm just slightly patting it out to diffuse it a little bit. Right there on the outer corner. Take the shade Terracotta again and just blend it out into the crease. It's really great that you can use like all these shades and I don't find that the look gets muddy at all like some palettes are. The shades are very smooth and buttery that you're not going to worry about them, you know, really sticking in one place and really kind of just making like the look overall very muddy. And we're gonna go back and intensify the red even more after we deepen up the outer crease. So I'm gonna take a pencil brush and I'm gonna go with the shade Burnt Umber. I'm really just coating this very well and evenly so you don't have to worry about anything skipping or really sticking in one place. Tap off any excess and then we're just going to slowly build it up on the outer part of the crease. For me, I always feel like the deepening up the outer part of my crease is always the hardest part. So I definitely recommend taking your time with it. These shades aren't that dry, so you're not gonna have that big of a problem them really skipping. But just keep blending, going back in with a lighter shade. Anytime you add a dark shade, go back in with a lighter one to blend it out. And don't worry also if your outer part right here is very messy because we're gonna go and clean it up like I did on this one. So I'm gonna go with a makeup wipe real quick. These are just Kirkland face wipes from Costco. And I'm just going to take it real quick and just going to really clean up this outer edge. Just following my bottom lash line. So I'm going to take that red shade again. I'm gonna take it on my finger actually and just press it down where I feel like I lost some of the color. Just brings it back to life. If you want to blend it out, you can. And then I'm gonna take my Real Techniques accent brush and I'm actually going to go in the shade Copper. And I did this last minute when I was doing my eye and I kind of just took it right here in the inner corner. just so you have that like goldish coppery shade fading into the yellow, and it looks very seamless and like the yellow's not out of place. And you can make it as intense as you want, or you can make it really subtle like I did. And then I'm gonna clean it off, and I'm gonna go with the shade Sand, and I'm just going to stick it right underneath the arch of my brow just to give it a nice little highlight, and then blend it out with my e.l.f. brush. So you can definitely add a wing to this also if you want to. I personally don't want to because I really want the eyeshadow to be the main statement piece of this look, but you definitely can by all means. I'm gonna go do the rest of my makeup real quick, and I'll be right back to do my lower lash line. Okay, so I've gone ahead and I finished off the rest of my face and my eyes. I put on some false lashes. So now I'm gonna work on the lower lash line, and I'm just gonna go back in with the shade Camel first on my pencil brush. I'm just going to work this along the lower lash line all across. And then I'm going to take the shade Clay, and I'm just going to put this on the outer corner of the eye. And then with the even smaller pencil brush, I'm going to take Burnt Umber and just work that very close to the lash line. I'm not really taking this one past my iris. By doing this, by stopping like halfway through the eye, you're gonna make your eye look a lot bigger, more open, give that very nice cat eye effect. And then I'm just gonna blend these all out together. I'm gonna go into a little bit of terracotta just to bring that orange back. Right there. There we go. Make that pop just a little bit more. And then with my Real Techniques accent brush, I'm gonna go back in with Sand, and we're going to highlight that inner corner. This is a really beautiful shade. Like, you could even use this as a face highlighter if you wanted to. It's so pretty. So that is the finished look. I thoroughly love the way the shadows turned out. I was so impressed when I first tried them out and I did this eye. So I am gonna stop rambling now. I'm gonna get into the swatches because I know that's really what you guys are here for. I know that's what you guys are excited to see, so I'm not gonna wait any longer. So for the brush swatches, I am going to be doing brush swatches and finger swatches. I am gonna be using a flat real hair brush for the matte shades, and then a synthetic flat shade brush for the shimmer shades. I'm also going to be using another synthetic flat shade brush, this is the ones from Make It Forever specifically, and I'm going to coat this one in Fix Plus and then dip it into the shimmer shades to see if the shades need that extra fluidity to help make them pop more. Some of these I don't think they will, but I'm really interested to see if the peach one will. So without further ado, let's get into some swatches. So there you guys have it. There are the swatches. You got a tutorial. You got a nice little review. Honestly, I have to give this palette 5 out of 5 stars. It's phenomenal to me. It's one of the best things I think Sephora collections ever came out with. I'm so impressed by them. And I really hope that they keep this up. Like, I really hope this is not the only thing the Sephora Pro line comes out with. I really would love to see more from them. But that's about it for me today, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed this review. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Also, let me know if you guys plan on buying this palette as well. I'd love to know. Let's have a little conversation down there. Also, while you're at it, make sure you guys go ahead and give this video a huge thumbs up and subscribe to future videos. I upload twice a week, so make sure you guys have that notification bell on for when I do upload. And that's about it for me today, guys, and I will catch you guys later. Bye-bye!